On today's episode, we're going to talk about the compound interest of self-improvement, turning intention into action. Welcome to the ultimate crowdsourced personal finance show. This is your Friday Roundup.
You're listening to Choose FI Radio. The blueprint for financial independence lives here. If you're looking to unlock the secrets to financial independence and early retirement, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of like-minded people who are getting off the hamster wheel and taking control of their lives in the pursuit of financial independence. Choose FI, your home for financial independence online.
All right, Brad, lots to get into this week. I know in particular when we were talking with James Clear, a phenomenal episode looking at building habits, both building ones you want to reinforce and create and getting rid of things that you no longer want in your life, habits that no longer serve you. He laid out the 4 stages: cue, craving, response, and reward. It's kind of apt because coming off of Thanksgiving, I found myself giving in to the cues, the cravings, the response, and the reward. I think there should be a 5th stage, regret. But I think honestly now, having both heard this episode and also having this fresh reminder of doing things that they don't reinforce the behaviors that I want, I think it gives us a real opportunity to explore this incredible episode with James Clear, Atomic Habits.
Yeah, this was one of my favorite episodes without question. And frankly, one of my favorite books that I've read in the last 5 to 10 years at minimum. And I think what he said at the very beginning, which is on any given day, a choice that's 1% better or even 1% worse seems pretty insignificant. And it's very easy to dismiss the importance of these 1% changes. And I think we see that in a lot of life. These small things don't seem like much at the time because you get very little feedback from that one decision. Like you said, Thanksgiving was there. It's really, really easy to stuff the carbs in, right? I don't know about you, but I ate a whole lot of stuffing, a whole lot of mashed potatoes, and I enjoyed the heck out of it.
If I had just been able to cap it at Thanksgiving, I would have been great. But the problem is there's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, no, I hear you, right? And the leftovers are there. It's easy to do that, and it doesn't seem like much. But clearly, I think we know if you did that every day, at some point, you're going to wake up, look in the mirror, and not be very happy. James is saying the hallmark of any compounding process is that the greatest returns are delayed. So you really need patience to let those things accrue and compound.
I think that we knew going into this episode and going into this Friday Roundup specifically that we were going to be spending a lot of time on these concepts. Because, I mean, with every guest that we bring on the show, we're looking for ideas that change our paradigm or reinforce beliefs that we have. And this was one of those. I think for both of us, we recognize that financial independence is kind of an umbrella for life optimization. It's for living the life that we want to live and giving us the tools to achieve that. And once you get the finance part down, you get this bandwidth to start applying it to other aspects of your life. And just because you're good at your finances, you could be miserable in other areas still, right? Your relationships could be suffering. Your health could totally have suffered. The goal is to hopefully take the bandwidth that you achieve in one area and apply that to the other areas that need focus. And I know that as I look at what I struggle with and continually struggle with, it never feels effortless. It always feels like I'm climbing uphill, right? And things that I know are good for me, sometimes I enjoy them and sometimes I loathe them. And when I loathe them enough, I abandon them entirely. And, what was a habit no longer is a habit, et cetera. To be able to go back and analyze that and then say, what would it look like to reinforce those habits to the point where they became locked in, they become part of my identity, and simultaneous to that, eliminate these behaviors, which I know are sabotaging my future success, is really a big piece of this framework. The cue, craving, response, and reward really highlighted the different places in time where you can have an impact and what you can do. And he provided these action steps along the way. But this large idea, you said the greatest returns lag. When it comes to compounding, the miracle of compounding, the vast majority of your wealth is accrued in the last 5 years of accrual, right? I mean, it takes forever to get that first $100,000 saved up. But then that $100,000 starts working for you 24/7. And those compounding returns just churn through it. When you're focusing on your health, you go run that first time and it's horrible. You go to CrossFit and you feel like that awkward duck and none of the moves make sense and everybody else is crushing it. You just look miserable. You feel miserable. And you go back and you say, what's the point? And you're reading and you hate to read and you're not enjoying it. And you're like, oh, what's the point? Well, it depends on what you want your identity to be. What behaviors do you want to instill? And I found that by just showing up, so if it's CrossFit, just going to CrossFit and doing it enough, at some point that becomes part of your identity.
Yeah. And he talked about doing these little things. And he's saying, it's not that last one. It's not that last thing that made the difference. It's all the ones that came before this. And he said, and I love this quote, Jonathan, the work is not being wasted. It's just being stored. And I thought that was brilliant. And he talked about this in the confines of, let's say, work, right? So if you make a habit of making those extra 2 or 3 sales calls each day, if you're in sales, you might not see any major return over 1 day, 5 days, a week, a month. But when you look back on your career and you made 3 to 5 extra sales calls every weekday for a 30-year period, I guarantee you that is going to make a significant difference. So it's not going to make a huge short-term difference, but if you put the system in place, and that, again, that gets back to goals versus systems, which is what we talked about a lot. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But if you put the system in place and you trust that the inputs are working for you, then you just have to trust that system. And that really is a perfect example. Showing up for CrossFit, like you said, showing up to the gym, whatever it is, that is a perfect example. Like you might show up after Thanksgiving. And I don't want to put words in your mouth.
How shocked were you to see me at CrossFit finishing my class when you got there this morning?
I was very, very impressed. Very impressed. And you probably haven't been in a week because you're traveling. It's not easy to show up, especially when you know it's going to suck. You knew it was going to be brutal.
I did look at the workout this morning. Son of a gun.
Oh, it was a horrible 20 to 25 minute Metcon that like you knew was going to crush you, but you showed up. And if you show up 3 to 4 times a week, every week for a couple of years, you know what the result is going to be, but you can't prove when that time is going to be because it's not that last input. It's not just that last workout that did it, that you say, oh, wow, I am in shape. It's not that last workout. It's all the ones that came before. It's all stored.
I want to go through these identity statements because this is the part that I think is really crucial for our audience, these identity statements and it becoming part of your being and faking it till you make it and realizing that that's okay. Every time you take action, you're casting a vote for the kind of person that you want to be, right? And you latched onto that. It's one that resonated with me. And I just want to quickly walk through how you can apply this to different aspects of your life. He did it in passing. I want to spend a little more time here because I'm an individual. And I think our audience are individuals that in various aspects of their life, they struggle with this. And just as I'm kind of rolling through these, Brad, you can riff off these. And audience, as you're listening to this, please take this and apply this to the aspect of your life that you really are struggling with. So it's hard to know what to do, but sometimes say, you know, the person that I want to become, what would that person do? What is the type of person that would do that, right? It's one of those identity statements. And then just show up, just do something. So for instance, let's just stay on the fitness. You know, a fit person probably goes to more CrossFit classes than I go to currently. It doesn't have to be CrossFit. It could be your gym. It could be showing up to run. It could be whatever. In this case, I'm going to use CrossFit just because that's a season of life that we appear to be in and I'm enjoying. So I need to show up. I'm not accountable for my performance once I get there. I literally just I'm accountable for putting on my shoes, if it's cold outside, putting on a jacket and getting there. The rest will sort itself. And by relieving myself of all of that other responsibility, I don't have the decision fatigue that comes along with it. Well, what if I am not completely up to it, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll tell you, when I got there, CrossFit has all these crazy nuanced lifts that they do that you'll never experience outside of CrossFit or powerlifting. There's no reason for you to do it. And they're very uncomfortable to lean into. There's one that they do. It's a jump rope maneuver called a double under where you jump over this jump rope twice. And that's 1 rep. And you do it over and over again. It's crazy. There's individuals that can churn these things out like butter. And some individuals like Zach, who's editing our show right now, he cannot do a single jump rope. It's awkward to watch. I feel bad for you. No, just kidding. All right. So anyways, I could always jump rope, but I never have been able to understand or do a double under. And so I realized though that that's okay. You know, like I can just practice a little bit every single day. And so at home, got my jump rope And every single day for like 2 to 5 minutes, I would just practice. I would just do it. And that was horrible. I'd have lash marks. It looks like, it's horrible. It looks, there's words out there that I can't even use to describe the marks that were showing up on my legs and arms. But I just did it. And over time, my brain and the muscle memory kicked in, and suddenly I was able to do 1, then 2, and then now I'm kind of in that 8 to 10 rep, and it keeps going farther. And realizing that if you just show up and do it, it'll work for double unders. It'll work for anything. You know, I do this with my son. We're playing piano. After dinner, we get out a Disney song. We have this sheet music of old Disney songs that we love and enjoy. And I'm trying to learn how to play like Little Mermaid, Under the Sea, or Lion King, or whatever, like some known tune. I'm relearning how to play piano, and I'm horrible at it. But I do it for 5 or 10 minutes at a time, most evenings of the week. And over time, muscle memory kicks in and new skills are learned. And I'm casting a vote for the type of person that enjoys. I'm a healthy person. So of course, a healthy person enjoys going to CrossFit. And I want to learn how to piano. I want to play piano. Well, then you're going to need to play piano.
Right. Yeah. And he's saying all behaviors are tied to an internal story about yourself. The example he used here was someone who's trying to quit smoking, right? And someone can say, oh, no, thanks, I'm trying to quit, versus, oh, no, thanks, I'm not a smoker. And that is a huge, huge distinction. You can do that with a diet, right? Like how people refer to it, oh, no, I'm on a diet, I'm trying to lose a couple pounds, versus I'm someone who is healthy. And every time you cast that vote, every time you do something that moves you in the right direction, you are proving to yourself that you are someone who is healthy, as opposed to what I see as short-termism, defeatist, oh, I'm on a diet, right? Like it's just this short little thing. I'm not really looking to change anything fundamentally about my life. I'm just on a diet. I know that distinction sounds small when you hear it, but everything really comes back to our own brains and how we look at the world. And this internal dialogue of what type of person am I? It starts to pervade everything. It starts to become you. I know I find that. I am now building up this story that I am the type of person who is healthy. I really think about that down to the micro of it's 3:00 and I'm having my afternoon coffee and I've been eating just chips and a little bit of dip. I realize like that's not the type of behavior that someone who's healthy would do every single day. And I know it's small. I know it's silly. Like those I'm not devouring chips. I'm eating like a handful of chips at most, but that's not something that I want to do. And I'm doing it just habitually in a negative way, right? And now I take out just a tiny little bit of walnuts and just chomp on a couple walnuts. And that type of healthy fat is dramatically better than eating whatever nonsense carbs I was eating prior. It is just a tiny thing, but it's casting that vote.
At some point, the evidence builds up to support the identity statement. You know, on day one, when you're there and you're trying to eat this healthy choice and you're having a salad for the first time and maybe you're having a carrot for lunch or whatever, you're like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. Why would you do this? Bring back the fried chicken. But over time, you look back at these small choices, you look back at that option to show up and try whatever activity, whatever, you know, you may be out of your comfort zone in some random area that's not being covered on this show, but you kept showing up. And the evidence to support the type of person that you want to be suddenly is there where it wasn't before. Would a person that's not healthy make all these healthy choices? Obviously not. You know, at some point you become healthy. At some point you become a piano player. At some point you become a CrossFitter. At some point you become good with personal finance. You're listening to this show and you've heard us drop terms like Roth conversion ladder and maxing out your 401k and getting your employer match and sequence of return risk and 4%. And the first time you heard it, you're like, why are you talking? What does this mean? Who would use this in common language? And then because apparently we're serving personal finance with a side of humor, you hang on a little longer. Suddenly you realize you know what these terms mean and you know what to do with them. And you have an action plan for your life. And you're like, that story that maybe you had unconsciously that I'm bad with money is gone. It's discarded by all the evidence that when you have free time, you're using that free time to learn more about your personal finance. And then you're not just learning about it, you've been acting on it. And the evidence builds up as your portfolio builds up to support the fact this new identity statement, I'm a person that is great with personal finance. I have a very comprehensive understanding of what my financial plan is and what my goals are. It aligns there. You believe that and it becomes true. And so you do. I think that is the freedom that this gives you to say that you can learn, you can be, you can do anything. Just by casting small votes, the power of saying you don't need to do some radical, extreme anything. You can just show up for 2 minutes. So I blew it. All right, let's just talk about that for a second. Go back to the stages. I blew it over Thanksgiving. It started out with the Thanksgiving meal. The next day I went back and cleaned up all the leftovers, most of the carb ones specifically. I left that turkey to the side, doubled down on everything else. And then from there, well, that didn't solve things. So I went out we had pizza the next night because we were traveling. And then the following night, they wanted to do something different. So we did Southwest and had a burrito and everything else. We got queso, got guac. I mean, it's right now, I'm probably instilling a craving in someone right now. So it was delicious. But if you work through those stages, the cue was, it was unfamiliar cues. I was out of my element where I have my routine and I don't have coping strategies for not being in my routine. The craving was the suggestion, right? Just the simple suggestion from a relative, well, let's do this tonight. The response was yes and more. And the reward was the yummy deliciousness, the community that I got from imbibing in all of those different options. The fifth stage regret is what I'm dealing with now. But the identity statement that I'm a healthy person, I believe that is what drove me to the gym the very next morning. And when I don't have time to work out, that identity statement that what would a healthy person do is what has me, even when I can't get full workouts in, doing 10 burpees or 10 air squats or doing push-ups. And then realizing that this is not about your failure last week. This is not about the time where you screwed up and did something that wasn't in line with the type of person you want to be. This is the fact that every single day is the first day of the rest of your life, and you get choices to pick a new narrative. And every single time you do something small, you're casting a vote for the type of person that you want to be. And that gives me a lot of confidence with my chosen path.
Yeah, and I also thought it was incredibly insightful. He's saying, which aspects of my identity are still serving me and which aren't, right? And I think this is important. This identity statement, sometimes we build up these stories in our head that we're not good at X or we can't learn or whatever it may be. And you might have just unconsciously built up this identity that is just not serving you any longer. And I think it's important to take a step back or really try to and identify what are these scripts that you're running? What are these stories you're telling yourself? He talked about, and I really thought this was an interesting one because on the face of it, it was a positive thing. He was talking about military members, right? I am a soldier. And he said, but what about when you leave the service, right? What happens then? And the reframe on that is I'm reliable. I follow through on my mission. I'm a good teammate, right? You can talk about all of these things, but if you've built it up, just like he talked about with himself being an athlete, and when that was gone, what was he left with? He had considered himself an athlete for his entire life, but when baseball stopped or, he just reached the end of his career, what am I now? And you can really go through a soul-searching absence at that point of what the heck am I, right? I've always thought I was an athlete. I always thought I was a military member. What am I left with? Who am I really? But I think it's important to reframe that. And again, with the military member, I'm reliable. I follow through on my mission. I'm a good teammate. Those are just 3 of many that you could build up your new story around. And so you always have to look for what is serving you, what is moving you forward towards where you want to go in life. And I think that's really crucial. We are adaptation machines as humans, as Tom Bilyeu from Impact Theory would say. We are the ultimate adaptation machines. We can always learn. We can always change. We can always be better. If you believe you are stuck, you are wrong. It is patently false. I ask you and I implore you to give up that narrative that is not serving you. It's not serving you at all. What can you do to move forward? And I think these identity statements make a huge aspect towards getting you to move forward in a positive manner.
It's crazy how that tiny little reframe, how powerful that is. It's funny. I think me and you, our identity statements, our internal identity statements were never our profession. Like I just suspect, like for me, I could say I was a pharmacist, but I didn't really believe it. And I don't know, as an accountant.
Never.
Hey, well, Brad, what are you? I'm an accountant.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's fine. And there's other people that feel differently, but I do think there are some professions that this identity is particularly pervasive, not for good or ill. It just is. And I'm thinking in particular of doctors, maybe lawyers, some professional degrees, soldiers would be another huge example, maybe teachers, and athletes. I mean, those are some big ones. And if there's another one out there, please feel free to fill it in, but just to be able to reframe that and think about the skill set that came along with that profession, what skill set you cultivated. And it's pretty obvious with most of those that incredible level of dedication that was used to acquire that skill and what that says about your innate characteristics. If you can pull that out into this new identity, some people struggle with that. Without my job, what am I? There's probably a lot here to start exploring that and doing that thought exercise that you just laid out to identify those core characteristics that will come with you into whatever it is that you tackle, because your ability to build a new identity statement around that makes the transition so much easier.
Yeah, and Jonathan, he talked about controlling the cues. He's saying the people who exhibit high self-control, quote unquote, are just tempted less because they've redesigned their environment to make it the easiest way to change, because so you don't need self-control. None of us, he's arguing, have this just astounding willpower, or very few. It's you've set up an environment where the cues just simply aren't there. So in my case from before, when I talked about those chips that I eat at 3:00, very simply, to add friction in, I could put the stupid chips downstairs in the
Stop
basement.
bringing them into your home.
Well, that would be the most obvious.
Let's not go nuclear now. Let's calm down.
Yeah, let's be reasonable. But no, that would do it, right? That would add friction. Put them in my basement. There is no world where I'm going to walk downstairs just to get 3 chips.
I mean,
yeah, I'm thinking, I guess maybe there is a world. I'm thinking no, but just
maybe
adding.
in MK's infinite universes.
Yeah. So he's saying, make the good options the path of least resistance. You're prepping the environment for the next action, as he said, to make it easier. It's really simple. You talked about going to the gym. What are the things you need to do to make it easier, to make it just so obvious that you couldn't miss it? You've got to lay out your clothes. You've got to lay out your shoes. And is that it?
It's actually, yeah, it's funny as you say that. I actually have started to identify both the cues and the environment that makes me make these bad decisions. I can actually point to a time in my life where, from like a physical, from a fitness perspective, I had made it down into around this 10% or less body fat range, something absurd. And I don't really want to go back to that because I remember it was this monastic like existence that just involved gym and diet, et cetera, et cetera. But I remember there was a point in time which I had so few cues, stimulus, et cetera. I'd gone down that cycle so few times over the prior 3 to 6 months that I was never tempted anymore. In fact, I remember this feeling if I had one of the, if I had a heavily processed food, it would make me feel sick to my stomach getting there. And again, it goes to what you just said, controlling your environment. At a smaller scale, I'm in a different stage of life now. I can't imagine ever having it at that stage again, nor would I really even want that. But I certainly know that when I'm wearing flip-flops around the house, I don't want to do anything active. I don't want to go put socks and shoes on. I don't want to get outside. It's like, it's not one of those things. And yeah, to your point, it's kind of the same as like, if you look at these pain points, what environment do you find yourself when you make these bad choices? You can inverse all of those laws.
Yeah, and speaking of the laws, you can do the inverse to make them unattractive. So I guess the first laws are you want to make the good habits obvious, you want to make them attractive, you want to make them easy and convenient, and you want to make it satisfying. So those are laws 1 through 4. And you can just do the inverse, right? So it's make it invisible, hide my stupid chips, right? Make it unattractive, make it difficult or add some friction in, and make it unsatisfying. It really does work both ways.
And what I love about his book is he doesn't just drop these one-liners on you, right? He actually takes the time for whatever it is that we're talking about, like with personal finance, make it easy, right? Automate your investments. I think about when you're spending the Brad Barrett 10 minutes a month on your personal finance, you have made it extraordinarily easy. So it's not even a choice that you're having to make. It's just being done. Everything is on autopilot. That's just the way it works. That reduces the temptation to blow your financial freedom on stuff, And so I think when you're reading his book, when you pick up a copy of his book, take a look at the aspect of your life that you're struggling with, and then figure out how to apply these 4 stages, whether it's a behavior you're trying to reinforce or a behavior you're trying to eliminate, and figure out how to use this to actually cultivate or eliminate that behavior, that habit. And he makes this fantastic point, basically saying, goals aren't the end all be all. And across the universe, it's Instagram, social media, it's all about the goal. It's all about the result, the 100 pounds of weight loss, whatever. But when people are starting a race, everybody wants to win the race. They all have the same goal, and there's only one winner, right? And the difference between the winner and all those that lost, are the systems that were in place to support that effort. With a goal, you may hit that number, you may hit that result once, but with a system, you can get it over and over and over again because it's a process, a replicable process that you've built in place. And so he has this statement, You don't rise to the level of your goals, where this is the peak, you rise. You fall to the level of your systems. So put those systems in place to make those choices easy and obvious, make them satisfying. And you're going to find you're taking the path of least resistance. You're taking the path of least resistance to the life you want to live. That's the key to this entire thing.
Yeah, and tied into that is clarity, right? He talked about, are you lacking motivation or is it really just a lack of clarity? And I thought this was interesting. I'd never considered it before. He said, you could have these vague notions of, I'm going to try harder to do X, or I'm going to do better in the future. But what does that really mean? And he said, the moment of action passes us by since there is no clarity. Whereas if you said something like, I go to the gym, I'm the type of person that goes to the gym on Mondays at 5 p.m. I think there's a pretty darn good chance you're going to show up Mondays at 5 p.m.
You could even stack that. This is the key. You don't have to just use one of these. You can even dial it up a notch. Like if you know that when Monday comes, you're going to look for that out. You're going to look for a way to weasel out. You can add onto that a layer of commitment. And by that, it could be something as simple as, Brad, I'm going to the gym at 5. Do you want to meet me there? And you get that buy-in. I'm waiting to make sure you hold me. I want to go there. Create some sort of pain if you don't go. Because now you're the jerk. You're the one that didn't meet. You suggested it, and now you didn't show up. This can look super simple, and it can be totally fake. It doesn't matter. It still works for your brain. When you're at the gym, you're talking to another person there. All right, I'll see you on Wednesday. All right, I'll see you there. Something that simple, you have made an internal commitment. And then you said something as simple as just say it out loud. My wife has caught me saying my goals out loud. It looks like I'm talking to myself. It looks ridiculous. But I just do it sometimes. It's important. A lot of times you have these goals, you may not always be supported in your relationship. It may not be a common goal that you both have. It may be something that you do that is inconvenient for someone else, right? I mean, unfortunately, at different stages of life, that can be the case. If it's still important, but life's getting in the way, it can be important for you to, if you can't say it to someone else, you can at least say it to yourself out loud and form the words. And I give you permission to look weird while you're doing it.
No, but I mean, that ties in almost to like the placebo effect. I'm way out of my depth here medically, but we know that the placebo effect, it works a certain percentage of the time and a significant percentage of the time. And you're essentially just tricking your brain. And in your case, you're saying these goals out loud to yourself. You probably look like a crazy person, but
You look like a crazy person.
But it's fine because you're actually moving yourself forward. That's the wild part here. So when we talked about stacking these things together, all right, you've set up an identity that I'm the type of person that is healthy. You have the food choices. You have the, I go to the gym on Mondays at 5 o'clock or Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5 o'clock. And then you add in the commitment where you're meeting someone there, maybe even add a layer of consequences into this, that if you don't go, there's some negative repercussion. You can start building these things on top of each other, and you're just setting up this system that is almost invariably going to work for you. And that is what we want to do, right? We just want to set up this life where it's easy to do the right things. You're setting up a system that is moving you forward.
And when we're talking about habits, it's important to realize that a habit has to be established before you can improve upon it. This was a really big key takeaway that I had. You have to start something. You can always get better. I think perfectionism is the enemy of doing, taking any action. So many of us get caught up. Well, is it better to, when we're paying off our debt, should we do the avalanche method or should we do the snowball method? You should pay off your debt. Get started. Once you have a system you create and you actually have made a couple payments, we can evaluate whether or not that is the best way to pay it off. Should you do the avalanche? Should you do the snowball method? Should you do a hybrid approach? Totally fine. But the key is that you took action, you started paying them off. Don't let perfectionism be the enemy of action. The final thing that I wanted to say, and this is Brad, actually, you very rightly took the episode here at the end of the show, talking about the power of tribe and community. And we've seen that with the FI community. We talk about this as a FIRE movement. In fact, I actually had someone, they sent us an email or it was a message and basically said, I went to my advisor to ask them what they thought about these concepts of pursuing financial independence. And they said, oh, that's just a FIRE movement. That's just a movement, which I was like, okay, yeah, sounds good. But apparently, the advisor wrote it off as a fad. You don't know why people are against something. People may be against something because that advisor may be making a significant amount of money for assets under management. And, knowing that you can learn how to do this yourself, that you don't need to be paying 2% assets under management, that you don't need churn and burn funds, the fact that it could save you tens of thousands of dollars a year and maybe half your portfolio over time, maybe that's a threat. It could be that. Or Maybe it is. Maybe they just think it is just a fad. Maybe that's a true objection. What's missed in that calculation, though, is the power of knowing that there are other people that are doing this. There are other people that are saving significant amounts of income far beyond the 4% savings that are touted by many advisors as what the normal average person is doing, or even the 10%. When you're anchored to a 50% savings rate and you fail, but manage to hit a 30% savings rate, you're crushing it. And there's no future in which you regret that decision. Knowing that you're not doing this alone, that there's other people on this path that are doing this with you, enforce it. And this is why it's so important to be selective about the communities that you pick to be a part of, the tribes that you pick to be a part of. He was pointing to a study, and he didn't go into depth in the episode, but having read his book, I'll pull out the reference. There was a study done it was a type of monkey or chimpanzee. And the one chimpanzee was in this one tribe that learned a very efficient way of cracking open these types of nuts, maybe coconuts, et cetera. They had learned an incredibly efficient method. They took one monkey out of this tribe and put this chimpanzee into this additional tribe that had a very inefficient method. It took hours and hours longer to do it. The monkey knew this efficient way of cracking this coconut. But because everyone around him did this inefficient method, this chimpanzee desperately wanted to fit in and immediately within a week, started going to this less efficient method. That's crazy. But at the same point, it describes us. We don't want to stand out. We don't want to stand out for the wrong reasons, right? So picking your tribe, a tribe of people that are actively and aggressively pursuing financial independence, ensures that you will stay on pace and you will do this as well. And you will have the option, the financial independence, the financial flexibility to design your future decades ahead of your peers and anybody else in your immediate social circle.
Yeah, Jonathan, that reminds me of some psychological research that I've seen where basically someone is in a study and there are people who are answering a question incorrectly, right? There are these Confederates in the study who are there basically just to answer it incorrectly. And if it's only one person who does it, then usually the people who are I guess the subjects ultimately, they're going to answer right. They're going to say, oh, it's just that one person. But when they see 2, 3, 5 or more people giving an obviously wrong answer, they are going to follow that and actually give the wrong answer, even though they know in their heart of hearts it's wrong. We are social animals. We just simply are. And ultimately, we want to belong to groups or tribes. It's hardwired into us. And James said, join a tribe where the desired behavior is the normal behavior. And that's why being in the FI community, we are a tribe in this essence. And life optimization is the desired behavior. That is the normal behavior here. It's, like you said, it's a savings rate. And clearly that's going to get us to financial independence. But it's ultimately living a better life. And I go through my normal day-to-day life sometimes and just see a lot of people who are just doing things that aren't moving them forward. They're complaining. They're bemoaning the news and all the negativity, whereas I look at life in a very positive manner. And I think most of us in the FI community do as well. We're trying to make our lives better and our kids' lives better and generations, right? And being part of this community, you think in that positive way. And again, going back to what we said before, it's the little reframes. It is those little things that when you look at life from that tiny different perspective, the whole world can open up to you. And I think that is what the FI mindset is all about.
So as you start to really appreciate the fact that you really do get to design your future, that's a true statement. You get to design your future. And this is the first day of the rest of your life, the actions that you start today, the habits that you start to establish today, that you take action on. We can improve on them over the next year or two. These will eventually become true identity statements about yourself, but it's going to start with a simple action. Don't limit yourself to perfectionism. Don't limit yourself to having to be the best on day one. You will not be. You will be horrible. It will be awkward, uncomfortable, and that's awesome. What a great opportunity to get to learn it as you go and iterate every single day. When you look at life through the lens of unbridled optimism, the world opens up to you, and that is what financial independence is all about. It's a very optimistic place to find yourself, and we're excited that you're with us and you're with this tribe, this community of people pursuing their best life now to the end of 2019 and beyond. All right, let's go ahead and switch gears here. MK, I want to bring you into this conversation. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Great. I feel like how are you doing is probably the worst question ever, and I apologize that that's what I set you up with. What are you most excited about for the year 2020? What habits and behaviors are you trying to reinforce, and which ones are you trying to crush?
So I think I'm still on this journey of becoming not a workaholic with my habits. So understanding when I start to feel that stress of I need to get this done because then this, and I feel myself going down the rabbit hole of all the horrible things I think will happen if I don't take 2 seconds to just calm down, refill my water, grab a snack, then go back to get work done. I definitely am a recovering type A. So I am trying to work on making sure my habits are positive in every aspect. And I think I'm really dialed in on my health and my diet, but now it's that mental habits, those mental health habits of it's okay to take a small mental break. Don't go down the rabbit hole of stress. Everything's fine. Nobody will be harmed if it takes me 5 more minutes to send out this email just to make sure it's done correctly and things like that. So those are the habits I'm looking to build. And it was interesting switching from going from full-time work to now working from home. Being an entrepreneur, my cue was always I got in the car, I called my mom on my hands-free device, and that was when I talked to my mom every day. And so weekends, it was difficult, but I knew I had to get in the habit of calling her. And when I switched to working from home, well, there goes all the things that told me it was time to call my mom because I wasn't getting in the car. I was just walking across the hallway. So I have been trying to find a new way to build a habit to make sure I am still talking to her regularly because that used to be my daily habit.
Hallway?
She's not, no, but me leaving work is across the hallway. Okay. So I don't, I used to have a 20-minute car ride where I could just, how's your day going? Catch up on little things. We talked every day. And now it's like, oh yeah, I have to remember to call her because I'm not getting in a car at the end of the day. I'm just standing up and walking into the kitchen and I'm home.
And Brad, any behaviors for 2020 that you're trying to cultivate?
Oh, I don't know that there's anything massive that I'm trying to overhaul. I'm just trying to put things in place just to be healthier. Believe me, I am not perfect. I am far from it. And I'm just trying to build little things into my life. I think one of the biggest aspects is movement. While we talk about CrossFit and all this other stuff, I sit around a lot. When I look at my pedometer, I am nowhere near the 10,000 steps, whether you buy into that or not. It means something, right? It means you're actually moving around. In order to hit, for me at least, 10,000 steps a day, I have to take about a 40-minute walk. And I'm just simply not doing that. And it's not good enough, right? I have all the excuses in the world of, oh, I'm busy or, oh, this and that. But at the end of the day, it just hasn't been important enough to me. And I realize that needs to change. So I think just adding more movement breaks into my day is something I'm trying to work on. And it is not coming easy, but I'm trying to just build those little habits. And maybe it's looking at James Clear's book and just trying to set it up so it's easy.
Make it easy.
Yeah.
For me, to answer my own question, I'm not going to answer.
I was going to ask you, but I
was curious. I was like, all right, you've had a second. You've had 2 seconds. Is it coming? You want to still ask me?
Jonathan, what are you looking to change in the new year?
Thank you. So 2 things. So fitness, you obviously heard there's that's an ongoing thing. So diet and fitness, or I'm not even going to use the word. That's actually one interesting thing. Yeah. As I no longer really internally use those words, I'm no longer on a diet ever. I just eat healthy and I make better attempts to eat healthy and more importantly, not give in to cues or binges that turn into multi-day events where I go back into that drift state. So that's one. And that's actually, it's more eliminating those binge states rather, because I'm already doing a pretty decent job on the other side of that. The other piece, and this is something I hate to mention additional books while we're so focused on this book, but we're going to be speaking with author John Zaratsky from the book Make Time. I read that one on the flight home. And, we talked about with James Clear how this book was a synthesis of ideas. There's very few, having now gotten more familiar with the habit world, people that talk in this space, I think there's very few ideas in this book that are totally original or unique. Rather, it was James' remarkable way of creating a synthesis and a narrative that's so compelling you can't walk away from. Much in the way that financial independence is rarely new or original information, it's the synthesis that makes it so compelling and actionable. I think one of the things I've always felt is that I'm so busy. And when I read Make Time, paired with this book, Atomic Habits, there's not been another book or series of books that I immediately was taking action on those ideas immediately. And we'll talk about that in a future episode. But I mean, as you know, I rapidly came back and was telling you all the things that I wanted and actually did. I didn't just tell you what I wanted to do. I made all these small changes. And that is largely the point of eliminating that unnecessary busyness where I'm reacting to other people's priorities as opposed to prioritizing the life that I'm trying to design for myself and my family. You know, you can put yourself and your family first and build your life around that. It's a luxury, but it's powerful. And a lot of that looks like, we talked about that drift state that so many people find themselves in where they're watching 4 hours of television. They're touching their phone. Another statistic, they're touching their phone over 2,000 times a day on average. And they're in this book, they talk about something called infinity pools where they're drifting through endless refreshes over and over again because you can never run out of articles and content to consume. What does it look like to get the best of technology and eliminate the parts that are pulling you in that drift state? Those have been some big, powerful ideas. I can't wait to dive into that episode. So I think for me, 2020 is a year or a decade, hopefully, of really focusing on these identities that I want to become and want to be, and also eliminating this busyness, this unnecessary busyness that mostly is due to just drift when it comes to technology. So those are the two things that I'm working on. Well, unfortunately, that's going to bring this episode to a close. Now, as you know, we like to finish every episode by doing a drawing for a copy of a book that we have found useful. And we're doing our book, Choosify Your Blueprint to Financial Independence. Brad, I think he thinks we're going to key him out. Like, I think he thinks we're going to key. Dude, we're not keying. I'm just kidding. All right, enter special effects. All right, there it is. Choosify Your Blueprint to Financial Independence, found anywhere the books are found. This would be the perfect holiday gift for a friend, spouse, partner, child. Listen, if you have said to yourself, this information is amazing, if only I had found out about it 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Yes, that's exactly the point. Get this book. It's the perfect gift for someone you want to see start to live their best financial life now. But if you're on the frugal bandwagon, we have a drawing where you can win a free copy of this book. And we encourage you to do that. To enter the drawing, all you need to do, just go to choosify.com/iTunes, follow the instructions there, leave us a short written review, and then send us an email to feedback@choosify.com, letting us know that you left a review and what screen name you left it under. We give away one book for every 5 written reviews that we get, green suit not included, and we announce the winner on the Friday Roundup. So MK, how many winners do we have today?
Well, guys, today we have one winner, and this is from Didier. This review is titled Life-Changing Show. This show has been a game changer for me. Finances have always been a point of anxiety for me. I need to save, but that's about it. Things like investing, when or where were all alien to me. That is until Choosify. I've just finished binging the entire show from August of last year until now. The quality of the show keeps getting better and better. Jonathan and Brad deliver complicated concepts with a genuine passion and a side of humor that keeps you tuned in and on the edge of your seat. Even subjects that may not pertain to you take on a new life of their own on this show. This podcast has changed my life in ways I cannot describe. At its most basic, I am no longer afraid of my finances. I feel confident more than I have ever been in my life that I'm in control of not only my financial future, but the overall direction of my life as well. I look forward to continuing to grow with every little action that I take towards financial freedom. Keep up the good work, my friends. The fire is spreading.
All right, my friends, if you got value from today's episode, if you've been getting value from the episodes up to this point, just take 1 second and press the subscribe button on the platform you're listening to this on, whether that be your podcast via Apple or Stitcher, Spotify, or you're watching this on YouTube. I used to always say on YouTube, ring that bell. I was looking for the bell the other day. I think it's gone. I don't think there's a bell on YouTube anymore. I said it for like 2 more weeks and they got rid of it. So just press subscribe. Come on, press subscribe. It lets the provider know that you're enjoying this content and you want to be there when we produce additional episodes. All right, my friends, the fire is spreading. We'll see you next time as we continue to go down the road less traveled.
You've been listening to Choose FI Radio Podcast, where we help middle-class America build wealth, one life hack at a time.
Beep, 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 beep.
You know, I've noticed, Brad, that sometimes like when we're not talking, we just forget to like react and we just have like these stone face. Like I'm listening. This is my listening face. Why is it so, it's so terrifying.
Resting Jonathan face.
Yeah.
You're like, stop resting so much, dude. You need to be a little bit more engaged here. Ooh, that hurt.